Hi, everyone. My name is Robyn Acampora, and I am the Deputy Director for Yale's Office of Career Strategy. Today, we're going to speak about networking, and the title of our presentation is Networking 101, Turning Conversations into Opportunities. So the agenda for today is to first talk about what networking is. We'll get into informational interviews. I'm going to talk about the passive and the active job search to give you a sense of what both of those entail. We'll be talking about target lists, how to find contacts in those target lists, the outreach and preparation that is involved for informational interviews. We'll be reviewing that. And then I'm going to review some very common questions that come up for informational interviews that I've heard over the years in advising. I think the big piece for today to emphasize is that my goal for this presentation is to make sure that everyone watching it understands the importance of going beyond just submitting an application, right? So we really encourage you to think about talking to people, finding out more about the organization, finding out about different roles, and not just submitting a resume. This comes up very often in advising appointments where students will come in and they will share that they have submitted, let's say, 100 applications through job boards, through employer portals, but they haven't heard back. And that is when I typically turn to them and ask them if they've done any networking. So my goal again today is to allow you to understand the importance of networking and how you can do it in a reasonable amount of time. So let's get started. So what is networking? Well, networking is essentially building relationships with others who have similar interests and goals or skills that you have, right? And I think when you start to kind of think of it that way versus these are really high-level executives at a company and I have nothing in common with them. Well, actually you do, because you are interested in talking to them about what they do. Networking is something that should be part of your trajectory for your entire life, right? It's not going to be about getting that first internship or getting that first job. This is something that you should constantly be doing in terms of talking to people, being curious, wanting to find out what they do, sharing what you do, trying to find commonalities, and asking good questions. So in terms of the job search process, what will you get out of networking? Well, you're going to learn more about industries that you're most interested in, right? That's kind of the point. You're going to find out about roles within organizations. You're also going to be on someone else's radar when opportunities do pop up. And I think that's something that's just going to happen kind of organically as you're talking to different people and you express interest in an area, then they're going to understand that this is something that you're interested in. And so when things do arise, when they do have opportunities, you'll be someone they think about. It's going to make your application material much stronger because you have a deeper understanding. So through networking and talking to people and gaining a better sense of what is involved with that company, what's involved with that particular role, you're actually going to be able to put forth a stronger application. And I think that's an important point too. So informational interviews is probably a term you've heard before. It is a networking tool, right? So it's a powerful networking tool, and it allows you to learn about the various career paths and build relationships for the future. So what do they really entail? A informational interview is typically 20 to 30 minutes. So we're not asking for, an hour of someone's time, just a little bit less than that, where you're going to be asking someone about their career path. You're going to be asking them about what they do, how they got there, what did they do at Yale that helped them to get to this career. Everything that you are curious about, you'll be able to essentially interview them. It's not an actual interview for a job, but you do want to treat it that way in the sense that you do want to dress appropriately, you want to prepare, you want to do research about the individual that you will be doing an informational interview with, and you want to have questions that you can ask them. They can be done on the phone, they can be done via Zoom, they can also be done in person. It really just depends on, what the situation is and where the individual is that you're trying to interview. This could lead to a job offer, but it is not the primary goal. The focus is to learn more about the person's organization, what their role is, and the path that they took to get there. And I think it's important when we start to think about informational interviews to manage expectations, that as we're talking about this process, which we'll go through in the next 10, 15 minutes, you know, not everyone is going to be willing to be interviewed by you. Not everyone is going to want to say yes to an informational interview, and that's okay. It is really a numbers game, and we'll help you scale that outreach. I have lots of ideas on people you can reach out to. And so if someone doesn't respond, maybe you reach out to them one more time, and then after that, you move on. So just to take a step back, as we think about applications, and I mentioned earlier, that sometimes students struggle with applying for many things and they're not hearing back. If we think about it from the employer's perspective, this slide shows the various ways that they are typically getting applications, right? So certainly on their website, they probably have a careers tab, and so individuals are applying that way. In addition, lots of job boards out there, from Indeed to LinkedIn, that are pushing applications over to the company's site for them to review. And then there's also social media, which can also, for many companies, that's another way that they're advertising the positions and getting applications. But the fourth one is the referrals. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And that's kind of this more hidden process that not everybody knows about, where you are talking to people and having your resume kind of be at the top of the pile, because it's not just coming through, for example, a job board, but it's also coming through other channels where you've spoken to people and expressed interest. In case you're not convinced yet, here's some more compelling data as to why networking and referrals is so important. LinkedIn reported that employer referrals are 4 times more likely to be hired. Business Insider has shared that 70% of jobs are not posted. And the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics reported that approximately 85% of jobs are found through networking. So as we're thinking about networking, I want to, again, just talk about those 2 different channels. One is applying through job boards, company websites, and the other one is the more referral active process. On the job board side, this is a more passive approach. And I would say that you really want to think about doing both at this time. It's not that you're not going to apply through things through job boards. I actually think that applying through job boards and looking at job boards can actually expand opportunities. There might be things that you hadn't thought of before. It might come up with different job titles that you wouldn't have known or even around. So certainly that is part of this process. And for that, I would encourage you to think about things like the Yale Career Link jobs module, where that's a job board. You can set up filters and have things sent to you that are in the areas that you're interested in. Career Shift is another job board that Yale Office of Career Strategy subscribes to. So you will have access to that as well. You can get to it right on the ocs.yale.edu website. The Career Shift job board has a job aggregator, so it's pulling from millions of different job boards and employer portals, and it's sending you things that are also of your area of interest. Then there's also specific industry sites depending on what you're interested in. So for example, if you're interested in nonprofit jobs, I would recommend that you sign up for the idealist.org website, which will help you see more opportunities in that area. And there's many industry boards depending on what you're interested in. For all of these job boards, though, definitely take the time to set up filters, log in. They typically are free. Certainly the Yale Career Link and Career Shift are free, as well as Idealist. And make sure that you set up targets so that you don't have to go into these systems all the time, but instead will be emailed as opportunities arise. Now, on the other side of this is the more active approach, which I really encourage everyone to make sure is a critical step in their application process. And this is where we're looking at a target list. What you're going to be doing is building a target list of employers that you are interested in. What are the type of companies that you want to work at? And that can vary depending on, some people's target list might be geographically based, others might be based on a particular industry, a job function, and all that is fine. But in terms of building a list of companies that you are going to go after and reach out to, try to have an actual conversation with someone. So certainly Yale Career Link is one way that you can help to build that target list. We have the peer networking lists, which are giant Excel spreadsheets that show where Yale students have gone for their summers, as well as where they've gone for after graduation. You can filter these by industry, you can filter them by class year, you can filter them by location, job function. So those are a great resource as you're starting to get more proactive in your search. And they can be found right on the ocs.yale.edu website, as well as in Yale Career Link. Then we've also got outcomes data, which can be helpful. That's on the OCS website. In addition, LinkedIn can help to build that target list, Glassdoor. I've also found AI prompts to be really helpful. So for example, if I was looking in the Boston area and I said, entered into AI a prompt along the lines of, I am looking to work at a biotech company in the Boston area that has hired an undergraduate in the last 5 years. Please come up with a list of the top 20 companies and their websites. That could certainly help to build your target list. So I found that AI has certainly helped with building them. And then I would say that the biggest thing is, as you're thinking about a target list, right? And we said there's going to be maybe 40, maybe more employers on this list, to start to use Excel to keep this stuff organized. So you have an Excel spreadsheet, you're able to put the organization name, the contact person that you found, their email. You're also able to track correspondence. So as you start to reach out to these people, you can track, I reached out to them on this date, didn't hear back, then you can maybe you wait a week and a half, you reach out to them again. And let's say you do connect with someone there, track your notes in there. It's just a really helpful way to keep things organized. Now, as we're talking about this networking process, this first step is compiling a list of 20 to 40 employers, and that's what we were just reviewing. Then the next piece is I have to find someone who's at these target lists to talk to, right? Just because I have a name of a company, I still need to get more granular in terms of who am I going to reach out to. So that will be the next step that we talk about now. In terms of identifying contacts, first place to start is like your inner circle, right? Who of your friends, of your family, someone might know someone who works at one of these companies. So I always encourage students to start sharing their target list with, people in their inner circle and say, hey, these are the companies that I'm really interested in. Do you happen to know anyone who works there? You never know where someone might have, an old college roommate or a friend of a friend who actually works at that company and would be happy to speak to you. In addition, look at past jobs and internships and think about coworkers that you had, as well as supervisors that you had. They might have ideas of contacts as well. Then there are always Yale professors and deans who know so many different people in a variety of different industries. And so again, as you have relationships with professors, maybe a residential college dean, share your list with them and ask them for their thoughts. They might not know anyone, but they might say you should add this other company on to your list. So that's also a reason to kind of consult with them. And then there's professional and national organizations that you can always look into for starting with those contacts. Now, after you've kind of looked at your inner circle, I would suggest that you take a good look at all of the ways that OCS can help you find more contacts. This list is shared with links on how to get there on our ocs.yale.edu/networking page. So you will see explanations for all of these as well as hyperlinks, but I'm going to take a minute to just review them because I think that going through these lists will certainly help you to get that contact for different companies you're looking at. The OCS peer networking list, I mentioned them before. In terms of the peer networking list, there are both the class lists, which show Yale students who have graduated and are now working at those companies. So certainly those would be a great contact. The lists include their non-Yale email, which is great. And in addition, the summer peer networking list can be helpful because you can see a peer of yours who worked at a company you're interested in and reach out to that peer and ask them, how was it? Talk to them and interview them about their experience, but then also ask them if they have anyone they would recommend who they worked with at the company who's still there that you could talk to. So that's a valuable list. The Yale Alumni LinkedIn page, also a very powerful tool. If you are in LinkedIn and you search Yale University, you can then click on the Yale University LinkedIn page and you'll see an alumni button. You click on that alumni button and it will show you any alums from Yale who have a LinkedIn profile. And there are hundreds and thousands of alums in there. So take the time to look at that page. You can filter by location, you can filter by company, You can filter by specific industries. You can filter by what people majored in. And that should certainly give you some more contacts of companies that you're interested in. In addition, YAA manages the Yale Cross Campus. That has many alums that you can find, so that's a great place to start. We will have events and information sessions throughout the year, so certainly make sure you're looking at the OCS calendar so you can see what events we're having that would tie into what industries you're interested in. And there are certainly contacts that will be attending those that you could reach out to. YAA also has a regional clubs and special interest groups database on their site. So you can search by country, you can search by state, you can also search by special interest groups. For example, the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Association has information there. So depending on industries, there's one for environmental, I know that. So the special interest groups could be relevant for you as well. Leadership Connect is another resource that OCS provides that is more for government context. You can check that out. And the Yale World Fellows are these individuals who have done really amazing things in across the world outside of the United States, and they come to Yale for one semester and then they go back to their home country and continue to do what they, whatever their success was in. So there's a database that you can connect to for the Yale World Fellows that allows you to search by country, and you can find these great change makers throughout the world and reach out to them as well. Again, all of these resources with their hyperlinks are on our networking page. So just going back to these steps again, as we think about the networking process, as we think about finding a contact, for each employer, we just reviewed that. Then the next step is to reach out to those contacts for informational interviews, right? So we have the list of 40 employers that we're interested in. Now I have a contact because I've used my inner circle as well as my OCS resources. The next step is reaching out to them and asking them for an informational interview. In terms of outreach for requesting informational interviews, we have a whole page. It's the sample informational interview request page on our website, where you can see different ways that students have reached out to individuals asking them for an informational interview. This is just one example, so I'll read this to you, but it gives you the idea of, how simple these can be. We're not talking about writing paragraphs upon paragraphs. We want to keep it simple and we want to get to the point. We also want to show them we've done a little research about them, and if we have any commonalities, we point them out. So, dear Ms. Branford, I am a sophomore at Yale, majoring in cognitive science. I saw your profile on the Yale Alumni LinkedIn page and noticed that you currently work at a startup doing business development. I also noticed that you were very involved with Sci-City as an undergrad, which is my biggest extracurricular activity. As someone who is looking to work at a startup after graduation, I am writing to seek your advice on how to best maximize my time at Yale. Would you be available for a 25-minute informational interview? I would appreciate hearing about your experiences at startups and any advice you have for me about making this transition. Thank you in advance for your consideration. So again, this is just one sample, but it gives you the idea of how to craft an email, and you can certainly go to our website to find more. In terms of preparation for these informational interviews, you are creating drafts of emails to ask them to meet. Then you are also coming up with questions that you want to ask them for that interview, right? Because you're going to prepare just like it was a regular interview. So one of the tools that can be helpful for this is AI. This is an example of a prompt that one student was using as they were trying to think of how to come up with questions for their particular background and as they thought about the industry they were looking at. So this says, what are 10 questions I should ask this alum to understand if consulting is a good extension of my experience in working in a research lab for 3 years at Yale? So again, very personal, but gives you an idea of what this student wanted to gain. And as you can see here, they came up with 10 examples. So these are just different examples of what someone could ask. It doesn't mean that the student is going to take all 10 examples. Maybe they think really only 5 are relevant, but it certainly can be helpful as a starting point as you're starting to brainstorm and think of, solid questions that you want to ask of the individual you're interviewing. So the last part is FAQs on networking. I get a lot of questions that come up as students start to really get involved with creating the target list, coming up with contacts that they're able to find, and then reaching out to companies. There's a lot of nuances that take place. So I'm going to review these questions in case they're helpful for you. Oftentimes I get asked, what if I already applied to a job? Is it too late to network afterwards? And it is never too late. So you can always email someone, you explain that you just applied for a specific job, and you're hoping you can still speak to them about their experience working for the employer or the industry. So again, in an ideal world, you see an opportunity and you're reaching out to folks before you apply because you're getting more intel, and that can actually help make your application stronger. But sometimes that's just not possible because there's a deadline or you find out about something later. And so certainly applying for the position and then following up to do informational interviews is still absolutely helpful. Should I send a LinkedIn message or email them? So email is the best. I think that's the most popular way that folks will respond to you. So if you are able to get an email, that's great. LinkedIn would be kind of the second or third choice if you're not able to get it. So in terms of getting an email, Career Shift, I mentioned it before, as a job board, but it also has a great contact section. And that contact section allows you to search for Yale alums. It allows you to search by companies, and it does give you their email address. So definitely check that out. In addition, hunter.io can be helpful to get email addresses. And many alums do have an email forwarding, so you can certainly try that. And that would be their first name, last name at aya.yale.edu. So how do you this question says, how do I request someone's help with a job in an informational interview? And it's a very fair question, because I think a lot of times students, they're finding out about someone's background, maybe finding out about the company, but they don't know how to kind of close the deal and ask them for next steps in their help. And this is where, you can assure them that this conversation was incredibly helpful. It just confirms that you want to work for this employer. And then you can simply ask them, would they be willing to forward your resume on to the hiring manager? So the idea here again is that you are applying through the job portal, the job board, but then you're also getting your resume into the right hands of the person, and they're getting a referral from the person you talked to, saying, I spoke to this person. Take a second look at their application materials. Can I network with multiple people at the same company? Absolutely. I get this question a lot. There is nothing wrong with reaching out to someone more junior, more senior. You never know who's going to actually respond and say, yes, I am willing to talk to you, but at the same time, someone who is more junior will have a very different perspective than someone who's more senior, and they both can be critical in terms of helping you get the best picture of the opportunities there and to put your best foot forward in terms of an application. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this presentation. Again, a lot of this content will be on our website if you go to ocs.yale.edu/networking.